Hello. Today I want to do part one of a three-part series on an introduction to harmonic astrology. And in part one, I'll talk about how you construct harmonic charts, give you some of the basic theory behind harmonic charts, and some of the basic rules regarding harmonic astrology in terms of they're really theorems of what works, what doesn't work. In part two, I'll talk about interpreting different harmonics. And in part three, I'll give examples of how one might use harmonics in regular astrology. And I'll talk a lot about Donald Trump in part three, and also about the March 29th solar eclipse, which let's see, I'm making this on the 18th of March, so that will be upcoming. Okay, well, let me share my screen and we can get started. This will take just a minute. And I have to get rid of some panels and things so that I can see what I'm doing. So just bear with me for a minute. Getting close. And I'm ready. Introduction to Harmonic Astrology, Part 1. Okay, now, before I talk about anything else, I have to review what I and others call the cycle of becoming. This is a 12-phase cycle, a cycle or circle broken up into 12 phases, and this applies to any cycle whatsoever, whether it's a 360-degree cycle or a 30-degree cycle. And it's the signs of the zodiac that represent these 12 phases. So I'm going to go for this as quickly as I can, but I like to use a relationship, the beginning and the final end closure of a relationship as an example of these 12 phases that you can apply to any cycle. So we begin over here with the conjunction, the waxing conjunction, a new vision, the seed is planted. Now, when we get to 30 degrees, which is where the sign of Taurus begins, that is the waxing semisextile. And I call that first encounter. That's when we see this person across a crowded room, and we wonder if they're the one. In the new vision, this vision we had for this beautiful relationship we'd like. And then we see a possibility, but we haven't gone on the first date yet. At the sextile, the waxing sextile, that represents the first date where we discover mutual interests and we begin to get closer. But then we come to the waxing square, 90 degrees. That's where individuality reasserts itself again. And we can have second thoughts. Do we really want to go ahead with this relationship? If we decide yes on both parts, then we make it to the waxing trine, the second date, as I call it. And that is where things are getting closer than ever in terms of harmony. But if you make it past that point, you get to the waxing quincunx. At this point in a relationship, each person in the relationship, they can start to drop their masks and reveal who they are, flaws and all. As they go forward, this is the time where adjustments have to be made to one another. If the relationship continues, then the 180-degree point, I call that intimacy. The vision has been illuminated like the fullness of the moon, and we are now a couple. Like the full moon, we are now both one and separate at the same time. This is where, in the relationship, it becomes we instead of me. Now, the waning quincunx, that's also going to be the waxing semisextile for the relationship. Uh, this relates to the eighth house. It has to do with transformation. At this point in the relationship, the I must die so that we can take its place, and more adjustments have to be made. But when we get to the waning trine, which is waxing sextile from the seventh house point of view, I call that knowing each other's wisdom. This is where we begin to really understand each other's mind, and the relationship achieves even greater harmony. But then we get to the waning square, which I call the midlife crisis. Again, we remember what we were as individuals, and we have to decide whether we want to continue or not. And there are always married couples who they're going along fine until they reach middle age, a little later in life, and they think about their choices and decide, no, I don't want to go any further anymore. And that's always kind of sad. Okay, now, next we hit the waning sextile. If we make it to this point, the two are now truly almost one. It's measured from the seventh house. This is a trine, and the relationship is getting very, very deep. And then we get to the waning semisextile. These are the final adjustments that are made so that those last traces of separateness are disappearing as the initial vision enters its final phase. One could think of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter as being at this stage very late in life where they're not really separate at all from one another. They're still in two separate bodies, but they're truly of one mind. And then, till death do us part, if you will, eventually every relationship, every synodic cycle between two planets will reach its end. But what began as just a seed and a vision for what could be is now a vision that is realized. And things have progressed, evolved, developed to their fullest extent, and now it all comes back together as one. Okay, so this is my interpretation of the cycle of becoming, and I go over this because harmonics are also going to be angles in a chart. And my contention is that every angle ultimately has to be interpreted according to where it falls within the cycle of becoming. That goes for our usual angles like sextiles and trines and squares and semisextiles, but also goes for any other angle, whether it's a 45 degree, a 15-degree angle, a 1-degree angle. Everything can be interpreted in terms of the evolvement and development of this relationship and the cycle of becoming. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what is a harmonic in astrology. Well, this is a question that has more than one answer. For instance, a harmonic can be just a number like 2, 3, or 100. It can be an angle like 30 degrees, 120 degrees, or even 5 degrees. It can be a particular type of auxiliary chart derived from the natal chart. And it can be a subdivision of the zodiac into a series of sub-zodiacs. Okay, we have all sorts of different kinds of cycles in astrology. The horoscope itself goes from 0 to 360 degrees, but every sign represents a 30-degree cycle. You can think of the moon spending about a month going through 30 degrees of a sign, and then it starts over with a new sign. That is kind of like the minute hand and the hour hand on a clock. Um, the minute hand goes through this 60-minute cycle, and then starts another 60-minute cycle, but we have another cycle going on at the same time. That hour hand advances 1 hour for every 60 minutes. So we're going through a 30-degree cycle over and over on the horoscope wheel. You can think of that as the moon's monthly cycle. But then the sign cycle advances each time. So we do the second 30-degree cycle and a new cycle. Okay, but every cycle can be broken up into the 12 phases that correspond to the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 houses of a horoscope. So in particular, every 30-degree cycle can be broken up into those 12 phases. And that means you're replacing that 30 degrees by a subzodiac. Okay. And if you do that for every sign in the horoscope, then you get 12 subzodiacs. And that is creating a harmonic, we'll talk about more shortly, called the 12 harmonic. But any kind of subdivision of any angle of the zodiac into a series of subzodiacs, that creates harmonics. So a harmonic can be any or all of these things. Now, harmonic astrology began its developments during the late 1950s under John Addy, and the variant known as vibrational astrology was developed several decades later by David Cochran, who changed his name last year to Santino Mancuso. But the roots of both and Vedic astrology have been around for hundreds of years. And we can also think of a harmonic chart as a sort of auxiliary chart or personality that augments what is shown in our natal chart. For example, as we grow and mature, our personality doesn't remain static. We continually evolve, and harmonic charts can show us what directions our evolution will likely take. In this regard, we can think of the natal chart as representing our nouns and verbs, who we are and what actions we take, and the various harmonic charts are modifiers like adjectives and adverbs that show how our original personality may be modified and augmented over time. Okay, how do we calculate harmonics? Well, first, the natal chart, or whatever chart you're starting off with, that is called the one harmonic. And here I just have a generic chart wheel starting at 0 degrees Aries and using equal houses. Okay, now if we divide our natal chart into 12 equal parts of 30 degrees each, this is just what I was talking about a minute ago, and replace each part by an entire zodiac, then we're constructing the 12 harmonic. So the 30 degrees of Aries gets replaced by an entire zodiac going from Aries to Pisces. And likewise, the 30 degrees of Taurus gets replaced by an entire zodiac going from Aries to Pisces. And we do that all the way around. So we have 12 subzodiacs, and this leads to the 12 harmonic. Now, if we divide our chart into 4 equal parts of 90 degrees each, and replace each 90-degree interval by a zodiac going from Aries to Pisces, Aries to Pisces, Aries to Pisces, Aries to Pisces, then we're constructing the 4 harmonic. And if we divide our chart wheel into 3 equal parts, replace each part, so this will be each 120-degree angle by a complete zodiac, then we're constructing the 3 harmonic. And if we divide our horoscope wheel into 2 equal parts of 180 degrees each, replace each part by a zodiac from Aries to Pisces, then we are constructing the 2 harmonic. Okay. Now, suppose in our natal chart we have the sun at 0 degrees of Leo, 0 minutes. What we want to know is what will the sun's position be in each of these different harmonics? Well, If I do the 2 harmonic, you can just read it off from what I have here. In the 2 harmonic, Leo gets divided into these 2 signs. The first half is Sagittarius, the second half corresponds to Capricorn in the 2 harmonic. So 0 degrees Leo will be 0 degrees Sagittarius in the 2 harmonic. And notice down here that if you take the distance that 0 degrees Leo is from 0 Aries, that's 120 degrees. And if you multiply 120 degrees by 2, which is our harmonic, you get 240 degrees, which is the same as 0 degrees Sagittarius. Okay, and the 3 harmonic, you can just read it off here. Leo gets divided into 3 equal parts corresponding to Aries, Taurus, and Gemini in 3 harmonic. So 0 degrees Aries will be, 0 degrees Leo will be 0 degrees Aries in the 3 harmonic chart. And notice that if you multiply this 120 degree distance by 3, you get 360 degrees. But in harmonic astrology, well, in all astrology, we do clock arithmetic. We deal with a 360 degree clock. So once we've reached 360 degrees, we start over at 0. So 360 degrees is equivalent to 0 degrees. And these 3 lines here mean not equal, but is equivalent to. Okay, so in our clock arithmetic, 360 degrees is equivalent to 0 degrees, which will be 0 degrees Aries. And we always want to reduce our angles via clock arithmetic to something that's greater than or equal to 0 degrees, but strictly less than 360 degrees. Okay, in the 4 harmonic, it looks like 0 degrees Leo remains fixed at 0 degrees Leo. And sure enough, if I multiply this 120 degree angle by 4, notice that we can always take our angular distance from Aries, multiply by the harmonic, and that gives us what we're looking for. And 4 times 120 degrees will be equal to 480 degrees. That's outside of the range that we use for this 360 degree clock. So we can either subtract 360 degrees from this, or simply divide 360 degrees into this and look to see what the remainder is. Either way, we get back 120 degrees, so 480 degrees will be equivalent to 120 degrees, which is the same as 0 degrees Leo. If you start at Aries, you can go all the way around 360 degrees, and then plus another 120 degrees takes you to 480 degrees, but that is equivalent to 120 degrees and the longitudes that we use for our zodiac, always having an angle between 0 and 360 degrees. And then in our 12 harmonic, looking at the diagram here, it looks like 0 degrees Leo will correspond to 0 degrees Aries. And if I multiply 120 degrees by 12, that gives me 1,440 degrees. If I divide 360 degrees into this, or 360 into this, it goes an even number of times with 0 remainder. So this is equivalent to 0 degrees, which is, of course, 0 degrees Aries. Okay, now I've got about 5 essential rules and a few basic definitions that you need to know so that you know what I'm talking about when I say certain things or use certain terms. These rules are actually theorems I can give rigorous mathematical proofs for, but I'll just state these as rules without proof and then give some examples. So, first definition. A counting number is any of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. In other words, they're just the numbers we use for counting. Okay, now for a counting number n greater than 1, the root n harmonic angle is equal to 360 degrees divided by n. And notice if you divide by a counting number that's bigger than 1, then this ratio, 360 degrees divided by n, it automatically gives you back um, a result which is in the proper range. We don't have to subtract 360 degrees from anything. Next definition, the root 1 harmonic angle is equal to 0 degrees. Now I separated this from this one because if I divide 360 degrees by 1, I do have to do a little bit of adjustment. I get 360 degrees back, so I have to adjust that, convert it to 0 degrees to get in our proper range. Okay, now here's some examples. The root 2 harmonic angle. Just divide 360 degrees by 2, you get 180 degrees. The root 3 harmonic angle is 120 degrees. The root 4 harmonic angle is 90 degrees. Okay, another definition. I think this is the last one. For a counting number n greater than 1, the complete set of n harmonic angles is found by multiplying the root n harmonic angle by counting numbers, or equivalently by repeatedly adding the root harmonic angle to itself. However, when multiplying, we always do clock arithmetic. This means that in astrology, we always use a 360-degree clock, and once we reach 360 degrees, we start over at 0 degrees. So here are some examples of complete sets of harmonic angles for different harmonics. And in my notation here, H represents harmonic, and the subscript tells you which harmonic we're looking at. And then I've got a complete set. I always begin with the root harmonic angle. And for counting number harmonics, you'll always end at 0 degrees. So the complete set of 2 harmonic angles is 180 degrees and 0 degrees. Just multiply this by 2 or add it to itself, you get 360 degrees, which reduces our clock arithmetic to 0 degrees. The complete set of 3 harmonic angles is 120 degrees, 240 degrees, and then 0 degrees. Complete set of 4 harmonic angles is 9 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and 0 degrees. And then the complete set of 5 harmonic angles is 72 degrees, 144 degrees, 216 degrees, which is 3 times this, 288 degrees, which is 4 times the root, and then add another 72 degrees to this, we get 360 degrees, which we've reduced to 0 degrees. If I were looking at the 1 harmonic, actually you just get, for the complete set of 1 harmonic angles, all you get is 0 degrees. We don't usually talk about the 1 harmonic because we're looking, that's the natal chart, and we're looking at higher harmonics most of the time. And of course, when you do the 1 harmonic, that comes out a little special, since anything divided by 1 just gives you back the same thing. So we sometimes have to make little exceptions on our rules for the 1 harmonic. So that's why usually, for all those reasons, I said n greater than 1. But looking at these examples, you might come to the conclusion that the number of n harmonic angles you have is going to be equal to your counting number n. And that is going to be one of our rules. Okay. Rule 1. If n is a counting number, then to find the n harmonic of an angle, simply multiply that angle by n and express the result as a zodiac angle between 0 degrees and 360 degrees. It can be greater than or equal to 0, but has to be strictly less than 360 degrees. This is a rule I could give a rigorous proof for, but here I'll just give examples. So for instance, if we want to find the 5 harmonic of 0 degrees Gemini, you have to first find its distance from 0 degrees Aries, which is 60 degrees. And then 5 times 60 degrees is 300 degrees, which is 0 degrees Aquarius. So this is the 5 harmonic of this angle. Okay, rule 1 shortcut. This is very useful because there are a lot of times when I want to replace a 30-degree sign by its 12 harmonic, by an entire zodiac. And if you're finding the 12 harmonic, then you can just multiply the position of a point within its sign by 12. So if I want to find the 12 harmonic of 5 degrees Leo, well, you could note that that's 125 degrees from 0 degrees Aries, multiply that by 12 and then reduce it. But my shortcut says, in this particular instance, for the 12 harmonic, all I need to do is find the position of within the sign of Leo, in other words, 5 degrees, and multiply that by 12. And I get 60 degrees, which corresponds to 0 degrees Gemini. If I did 12 times 125 degrees and reduce that, I would get the same result. It just takes a little more effort. So this can be a very useful shortcut. And then if you want to get the 12 squared harmonic, whatever you get here, you can multiply by 12 again. That would be replacing each sign in that 12 sign sub-zodiac by another zodiac. And then we could take it even further, do that again, and that would take us to the 12 to the third power harmonic. And when we get into interpretations, we'll do all of that. Okay. Rule 2, the angle 0 degrees remains at 0 degrees in any counting number harmonic. Well, that's going to be obvious, because if you want to, for example, find the 5 harmonic of 0 degrees, well, you just have 5 times 0 degrees. That gives you back 0 degrees. Nothing changes. But in particular, what this means is that any exact conjunction in the natal chart, such as the new moon, will stay conjunct in all harmonic charts based on counting numbers. So if you start with the new moon with sun and moon exactly conjunct, you can go to the 2 harmonic, the 3 harmonic, the 4 harmonic, whatever harmonic you want, the 10 million harmonic. No matter how high you go, that exact conjunction will remain exact conjunction, because the distance between the 2 planets is 0 degrees, and that stays 0 degrees in any higher harmonics. Okay, rule 3, for counting number n, the number of inharmonic angles is n. That's what we talked about. So for instance, for the 3 harmonic, you got 3 harmonic angles. For the 4 harmonic, you have 4 harmonic angles. I've shown the root harmonic angle in red in each instance. And I always put them in this order. Start with the root harmonic, keep adding that root harmonic on, or multiplying by counting numbers until you get something equivalent to 0 degrees. That is the natural order for these things. Okay, rule 4, for a counting number n, the n harmonic of an inharmonic angle is equivalent to 0. So you could take any 3 harmonic angle, such as 120 degrees, you multiply that by 3, you get back 360 degrees, which is equivalent to 0. Take 240 degrees, your next 3 harmonic angle, multiply by 3, you get 720 degrees. That's just double 360. So that is also equivalent to 0 degrees. And of course, 3 times 0 degrees is equal to 0 degrees. Likewise, if you go to the 4 harmonic, you got 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, 0 degrees. Multiply each of those by 4, reduce as needed, and each one will be equivalent to 0 degrees. Okay. Now, this is really important when we get into interpretation because this says that, let's say you have your natal chart has a bunch of squares. Those are 4 harmonic angles. When you go to the 4 harmonic chart, those squares are going to be turned into conjunctions. You change from a separation of 90 degrees to a separation of 0 degrees, or a little bit off from that, since your square is probably not completely exact, but still within orb of a conjunction here. So that means that in the 4 harmonic, after you've had experience with those squares in your natal chart and have started to resolve them, handle them a bit, you're activating your 4 harmonic. And the 4 harmonic, you have reached the end of that synodic cycle. You're back at 0 degrees between the 2 planets. So that is always the goal of a synodic cycle between 2 planets, to get back to that final conjunction. So as we gain experience with squares, we activate the 4 harmonic chart in our lives. And that 4 harmonic chart shows who we become as a result of wrestling with these squares and difficulties in our life. Okay, now at this point, I can tell you why when we compute a harmonic chart, we always use equal houses. Here's a natal chart, my natal chart. Here's my 2 harmonic chart. You can see I've got my rising sign at about 20 degrees of Taurus. That's going to be 50 degrees away from 0 Aries. Multiply that by 2, I get 100 degrees. That's going to be about 10 degrees into Cancer. And sure enough, that's what the rising sign is, the ascendant is, in this 2 harmonic chart. And you would think, well, maybe I could just do the same thing to get the other house cusps. I just, double, this next house, its distance from 0 degrees Aries by 2. And this one, its distance from 0 degrees Aries by 2, and just so on around in order to get 12 house cusps here. Well, there's problems with that. For one thing, when you do that, you don't always get back things in ascending order in terms of distance from 0 Aries. So, the house cusps over here, when you do that, are not always going to be in the right order. Plus, look at this. Your second house and your 8th house cusp, for example, are going to be 180 degrees apart, right? For any house, you've got a pair here, pair of house cusps, which are 180 degrees apart. Well, what happens in your 2 harmonic? All 180-degree angles become 0 degrees. So in the second harmonic, the separation between second house here and the 8th house here becomes 0 degrees. They become conjunct. They both, in this case, wind up at about, well, let's see, where would that be? 20 degrees Gemini, that is going to be, let's see, 80 degrees from 0 degrees Aries. So you do 2 times 80 degrees, that's going to be 160 degrees. That would be 10 degrees Virgo. So if I convert this house cusp to the 2 harmonic, and also if I convert this house cusp to the 2 harmonic, I'm going to wind up at 10 degrees of Virgo for both of them, right? And, you can't have, if you were trying to use these individual house cusps here to find the house cusps here, your second and 8th house would wind up at the same place, and that just doesn't work. So for that reason, we always use equal houses. Find the harmonic for the ascendant in the natal chart, and then just do 30-degree houses going all the way around. We usually do take the midheaven from the natal chart and often find its position in our harmonic chart. So let's see, I've got my midheaven at about 1 degree of Aquarius. That's going to be 301 degrees from 0 Aries. If I multiply that by 2, that's going to be 602. And if I subtract 240 from that, let's see, from 602, I'm sorry, if I subtract 360 from that, let's see, 602 minus 360, that leaves us with 242, which corresponds to 2 degrees of Sagittarius, which is where the midheaven is here. Okay, rule 5, I think this may be the last one. K equal M times N is the product of two counting numbers M and N, then the K harmonic is equal to both the M harmonic of the N harmonic and the N harmonic of the M harmonic. Well, that's kind of a tongue twister, but all it means is that if I'm dealing with counting number harmonics, I can do it all at once or I can do it in stages. So since 6 is equal to 2 times 3, I could either find the 6th harmonic directly by multiplying all of my angles by 6, or I could first find the 3rd harmonic and follow that by the 2 harmonic, or I could do the 2 harmonic first and follow that by the 3 harmonic. Either way I do it, I get back the same results. Okay, now this is not always going to hold true if I had a fraction as my harmonic or an irrational number as my harmonic. I'll address fractional harmonics and irrational harmonics at the end of part 3 and show what happens with those. But trust me, for now, we can do everything we want pretty much using just counting number harmonics. Okay, now if you're calculating harmonics on a computer, well, you do it with software. If you have the Sirius software, this one is really nice because you can click that on a button up here, and then you can enter in several harmonics at once, click OK, and you immediately get back all of those charts. If you're using Solar Fire, you have to go to charts and select harmonics. Then you select the chart you want to get a harmonic of. You have a variety of options here. Select harmonic chart, and then you can type in your harmonic into this window, but you can only do one harmonic at a time. If you don't have any software on your laptop or home computer, if you use something like astro.com, a free online service for charts, then you want to go to extended charts. Under chart type, you select harmonic chart, and over here where you would put in the date, what day it is, that's where you put in the harmonic you want. So this would tell the program that I want the 2 harmonic for whatever my natal chart is. And then you click on show chart. So even if you don't have fancy software on your computer at home, you can go to astro.com and explore harmonic charts for free. Okay, which harmonic charts will be the most important for me to look at? That is a very good question, and there's several things that can make a particular harmonic chart important in our lives. First, since we all tend to accrue a lot of experience with sextile squares, trines, and oppositions, those harmonic charts can be important to all of us. Also, recall then the 2 harmonic, all exact oppositions become conjunctions. And in the 3 harmonic, all exact trines become conjunctions. In the 4 harmonic, all exact squares become conjunctions. In the 6 harmonic, all exact sextiles become conjunctions. And recall too, as I said earlier, a conjunction can represent the end of a synodic cycle where everything is brought back into union. Thus, the two harmonic chart represents who we become when we have, to some extent, resolved the oppositions in our chart, learn how to integrate with the other. The three harmonic chart shows who we become as we solve the trines in our chart. For trines, that doesn't take much effort. We follow the path of least resistance, and the three harmonic chart shows the personality, the augmented personality that results from that. And then the four harmonic chart shows who we are once we have resolved or wrestled with many of the squares in our chart, many of the problems in our lives, and so on. Addressing each of these kinds of angles changes us. We gain experience, we evolve. And these different harmonic charts show the likely course of our evolution. Okay, here's another thing to consider. Look at the closest aspects in your natal chart. Those really tight aspects will probably lead to harmonics that will be meaningful to you. So I have Uranus opposite Chiron with a 3-minute orb. I have Uranus sextile ascendant with a 4-minute orb. So the 2 and 7 harmonics will both likely be very meaningful to me. Also, if you have several enharmonic angles in your natal chart, then the enharmonic will likely be active in your life. And as an example, Donald Trump has several 11 harmonic angles in his chart. So the 11 harmonic chart will likely be an important modifier of his personality. And here you can take a look at all the 11 harmonic angles in his natal chart. And they're just sort of categorized by the 4/11s, 3/11s, 5/11s, 2/11s, 1/11 angle. With so many 11 harmonic angles in his natal chart, his 11 harmonic is going to get activated. And we'll take a look at that in part 3 of this series. Also, if a particular harmonic chart has strong aspect configurations involving 3 or more planets, it could be very important. Now, Linda Berry, if I'm doing this just by looking at charts, I usually look to see how many occurrences of a particular harmonic angle I have, and use that to sort of let me know how important a particular harmonic chart might be. But this astrologer with a background in mathematics and programming named Linda Berry, she has developed a wonderful program called Frequency Finder that looks at all of these things and returns a list of the most important harmonics with regard to your natal chart. This program costs $150 and works as an add-on to Sirius software only. However, Santino Mancuso, the astrologer formerly known as David Cochran, he changed his name about a year ago, is developing a free software program that will also be able to use Frequency Finder. Okay, so this is a very, very nice little program. And here for Donald Trump's chart, I ran it. It gives you back 2 lists here. The first one takes the first 32 vibrations and shows them in order of their strength, descending order. It gives you a score in brackets here and shows you how that number factors and what it factors into, whether it's prime or not. And by the way, vibrational astrology is just a particular branch or offshoot of harmonic astrology. So when it says vibrations here, that just means harmonic. So over here, you got first 32 harmonics in descending order. Number 3 on the list is the 1 harmonic. That's the natal chart. His natal chart's very strong. The first harmonic in this list, which is less than or equal to 12 is the 11 harmonic. And I'll look at that quite a bit in part 3. On the right-hand side, this little program, it looks at all harmonic charts from 1 up to 360. And it then lists ascending order the 32 strongest ones. So the strongest was the 258 harmonic. It had a score here of 292.18, and 258 factors into 43 times 3 times 2. So later on, I'll look at both of these two harmonics, and we'll see what they tell us about Donald Trump. Okay, now I got a quick word about orbs. I use orbs that I derive from mathematical theory when I'm working with harmonics. And Santino uses orbs based upon his empirical experience. However, our orbs are very similar to one another, and they both guarantee that a inharmonic aspect in the natal chart will result in a conjunction in the inharmonic chart. In both cases, mine and his, the orb for a inharmonic angle is equal to whatever we use as the orb for conjunction divided by n. Thus, in working with harmonic charts, I recommend that you use either my orbs or Santino's. Here you can see they're very close. For a conjunction, I use 15 degrees, Santino uses 16 degrees. For an opposition, I use half of this, as does Santino. For a trine, I just take a third of this, and Santino takes a third of his 16-degree orb. And for squares, I use this orb. And for a sextile, I use a 2.5-degree orb, while Santino uses a 2.67-degree orb. Okay, and that is going to be it. So let me stop sharing my screen. And I'm back. So that is all the basic theory that you will need to know going forward. There's certainly other rules like espouse. They correspond to theorems I've given proofs for. There are more advanced things I could talk about, but this is what you need to know before going further. You know how to calculate a harmonic by hand, and even though we've got software available, there are going to be times where you want to very quickly just do it in your head. You've learned from this that the counting number harmonics, they're the ones that are going to be most important. And even though I'll define and describe natural or rational number fraction harmonics and irrational number harmonics in part 3, you're not really going to need to mess with them. By the way, the same calculating rule, I stated it for counting number harmonics, but it works for any kind of number. So in theory, if you were going to the 1/2 harmonic, you would just multiply every angle in your natal chart by 1/2. But we'll talk about what all that means and toward the end of part 3, and why we'll see why we can just stick with counting number harmonics. So that's it. I hope that illuminated some things about harmonics for you. And I hope you join me for parts 2 and 3. But for now, I'll just say so long and be well.